Hey guys, thanks so much for checking out my podcast. Really appreciate it. Please click to subscribe. This episode is focused on passing the trash, something I've been looking into for a while. Teachers with serious, dangerous disciplinary records who are able to move from state to state and school districts know nothing about it. This situation in Arkansas with this guy who police say killed the parents in front of the kids, and he was able to get this teaching job in Arkansas. It is an example of this happening again, and I'm focusing on it in this episode of Brian Ensign Investigates. Hey guys, first of all, thank you so much for watching this video. I can't believe I'm at over 80,000 subscribers now, and I've only been doing this for 2 weeks, but I've been working really, really hard on it, and I really appreciate you guys for subscribing and watching. This story in Arkansas is so disturbing. The crime is awful, and I'm going to give you new details. I know you've probably heard about it by now, but I've got new details about what happened. But to me, what is more important to talk about, which I'm really going to dive into in this episode, is the passing the trash issue. And this is something that I've been investigating for more than a year now. Obviously, this is a new hook on it, but it's been a problem for decades, really. These teachers, they have disciplinary issues, sometimes very, very serious and dangerous issues, and they manage to move from state to state, and school districts don't know about what happened at the schools that they worked at previously in other states. So I'm going to get into all of that in a minute. But first of all, with the Arkansas crime, let me give you the latest on what we know, why he may have targeted that family in particular, which I find very, very interesting. There's no motive that we know about, but he may have been targeting the girls, which I'm going to explain in a minute, and what he may have actually wanted to do. So police say Andrew McGann, that's his name, admitted to stabbing to death 2 innocent parents who were hiking in Devil's Den Park. That's in Arkansas. The parents are Clinton Brink and Kristen Brink. They were just enjoying a day with their 2 young daughters, 7 and 9 years old, the little girls. They actually just had moved to the area not long ago when police say McGann appeared on the trail. They say he had no connection to the family at all, that this was totally random. Again, in terms of motive, was he after the parents or the girls? I'm going to get more into that later, and I've got some interesting evidence on that. And the timing of when he decided to do this, something that I didn't think about, but after investigating, realized the timing could be significant in terms of motive here. I want you to listen to what police say, and then I'm going to get into just the enraging history of this teacher.
They absolutely protected those girls to their fullest extent, to the point that it cost them their lives. We're in awe of this mom and dad. We're also in awe of these girls. The information that they were able to provide to start us down this path to be able to make this arrest.
So the information that we have is that the husband was attacked first. The mother did not return all the way to the car with the kids. We believe that the mother took them to safety and then returned to help her husband.
So the parents saved their kids. That's pretty clear. These are heroic parents, and they had to save their kids from a teacher who really should not have even been living in Arkansas and able to get a teaching job in Arkansas. And that, to me, is what is the most upsetting about this whole thing. I'm going to go through his history now with you. Andrew McGann had recently moved to Arkansas. He'd been hired as a teacher there. He hadn't actually started working yet, but he had been hired. But when you dig into the past teacher jobs, it becomes really clear why this should not have happened. McGann had previously worked at Donald Elementary School. That's in Flower Mound, Texas. And parents there, they're now coming forward with disturbing reports that he would put little girls on his lap, say things like, "I wish I could date you. I wish you could be my girlfriend." These are the little girls that he was teaching. They called it really nasty grooming behavior. That's the way they phrased it, that he would give a lot of special treatment to girls in particular, giving them candy, bringing them Sonic drinks, tickling them, what they called really, really suspect behavior. He was placed on administrative leave. The district says this is in Texas. So he was on administrative leave following, this is the way they described it, concern to classroom management, professional judgment, and student favoritism. And this was back in 2022 and 2023. So let me read you this social media post from one of the parents from that school back in Texas to give you a little perspective of what this guy was like in Texas before he was able to move to Arkansas and get this teaching job. This is what one of the parents wrote. This sick individual taught fourth grade at Sawyer's School when he was in fourth grade. He was occasionally in the guy's class on Fridays. S told me during the year that McGann gave candy away and brought Sonic drinks to class, but only for girls, and I thought that was super bizarre. Then he heard from other kids that Andrew McGann hosted lunchtime in his classroom for, quote, special girls. He mentioned how often McGann played tag with girls during recess. I saw the guy at the school on multiple occasions and wondered why a single man in his early 20s was interested in teaching young kids. He seemed charismatic and was usually surrounded by kids, especially little girls. Other parents and teachers commented how much the kids liked him, and I heard moms talk about how hot he was. By May of 2023, parents of girls affected had been going to the school and district with allegations of him tickling and asking girls to sit on his lap, giving treats, and praising their looks. By the end of the school year, McGann was placed on administrative leave for inappropriate classroom behavior and favoritism and was allowed to resign from LISD. He was not fired. He subsequently allegedly went to 2 other schools in Oklahoma and was about to start teaching at an Arkansas elementary school before he brutally murdered these parents at a state park in front of their young daughters. It absolutely shook me to see his mugshot last night after he was apprehended. So that is from one of the parents in Texas. The internal investigation, this is from the school district. This is their response to all of this. This is the Texas school district. The internal investigation found no evidence of inappropriate behavior with students. McGann resigned in May 2023, according to the school district. So McGann left Texas, was then hired the next school year, Spring Creek Elementary in Oklahoma. They say that he passed background checks and nothing indicated that he should not be hired. So he went from Texas to Oklahoma, and this is where the passing the trash issue comes into play. And this is what I think is the most important component of this podcast, because this is a bigger issue impacting the entire country. When a teacher has disciplinary issues and resigns, their disciplinary record does not follow them all the time or most of the time from state to state. So they will leave one school, they'll resign before they can really get into any trouble. If they know that there's an investigation ongoing, they just resign, they move to another state, and then that new school district has no way of finding that old disciplinary record, and they get hired with a clean slate, even though in many cases, sometimes these people can be dangerous and have really, really shady records. This guy was clearly hopping from state to state. My guest that I'm going to talk to about this is Tracy Walder. She's a friend of mine too, known her for a long time. She's a former CIA agent, also former FBI agent, also a teacher, and she actually has taught at the elementary school, or taught in the school district in Texas where this guy worked. But what's so interesting with her is this issue hits so close to home to her because something happened with her daughter's teacher that is very much connected to this passing the trash issue. So she's got really good insight into it. We've actually been talking about the passing the trash issue for over a year. And this is something that she wants to see laws change, and this just again brings it up. So listen to my conversation with Tracy. Tracy, thank you so much for talking with me. It's always such a pleasure to see you. I'm so used to you with your one backdrop you always have when you're at home. So I'm like, oh, this is a different backdrop than I normally see Tracy.
Yes, thank you for having me. This is my childhood home in California.
Very nice. Well, I hope you're enjoying your time back home.
Thank you.
I wanted to talk to you about, I know you've been following the story really closely. It's just awful out of Arkansas with this Andrew McGann. First of all, before I get into, which is really what I want to talk to you about, his past and how he moved from one state to another and what a problem that is. What do you make? I mean, they still don't seem to have a motive, but they are saying that it was random and that it was a stabbing. And I mean, in front of their kids, like it doesn't, I'm trying to understand like where this came from.
Yeah, that's kind of the part I've been really trying to figure out as well, because I feel like I have the other pieces. So I totally agree with you. Again, Brian, I'm hypothesizing, right? This is all just my opinion. I personally feel that his target, the girls were 7 and 9, or are 7 and 9. I feel that this is not, I don't think he followed them to the park per se, right? And followed them to this hiking trail per se. I believe he was hanging out on that hiking trail or the trail to pray, in my opinion. That's what I believe he was doing. I believe that those parents, just because in little snippets I've heard, I believe those parents were trying to defend those children, in my opinion, from him. And I believe that he had every intent of taking those children and taking those children alive. Because, in my opinion, if you come with a knife, a lot of times that's used to threaten, right? And to coerce people. And so that's what I think his motive was. But that's just, again, my opinion. I don't have much more information other than that to really go on.
Well, and there was a statement that the family put out, the victim's family, that said that the parents died defending, protecting, heroically protecting their kids. So that would make sense with your theory of what happened. And I'm just thinking about the fact, I mean, it's gruesome, but that they were stabbed to death. I just hope the kids were able to run away or didn't have to see that.
I mean, I hate to say this, I'm assuming that they did. To be honest with you, in a way, I'm glad that he did spare them. I think it probably created such a ruckus, in my opinion, that he did run away. It's very unfortunate. Obviously, stabbing is very personal, close killing of someone. And I do think that the children, unfortunately, probably did witness this. And that's, I guess, one of the most horrific parts, other than the fact that they obviously lost their parents.
Yeah, it's terrible. So you and I have spoken in the past before about this sort of off and on, and I was so alarmed when you first told me about this pass the trash issue in America, where and this man, by the way, this suspect, was obviously a teacher, and these bad teachers with disciplinary issues basically go from state to state without their records following them, and they're able to get new jobs. And with this guy in particular, I just want to read you this. He was placed on administrative leave in spring 2023 from Donald Elementary School, that's in Texas, following concerns related to classroom management, professional judgment, and student favoritism. But there are parents who are now speaking out, giving more detail, saying that they had concerns that he was not properly teaching their children. Some students were following behind, that there was grooming behavior. The district said in a message to the school community that an internal investigation did not reveal any evidence of inappropriate behavior, but the parents are saying there was one parent who said that he loved to play tag. It was at a recess every day with the girls playing tag. That her son also told her that he would give out candy and special prizes to female students. That the girls were flocking around him. That in early May, late April, other parents started saying that he was having special lunches during the lunch break where all the kids would go to the cafeteria, but then he would ask some of the special girls to stay in the classroom and have lunch with him, which the parent called weird. Other moms alleged that he had encouraged some girls to sit in his lap. And he was disciplined there and then moved on from Texas. He was in Oklahoma and now he was in Arkansas, which you have to wonder what he's a young guy, why he was moving so much and getting these different teaching jobs. And now he had the teaching job in Arkansas. And apparently he had gotten the job, he was hired, but he hadn't started teaching yet. Um, I'm guessing this doesn't surprise you because you've kind of become an expert on this topic.
Not at all. And this actually, Donald Elementary is in Louisville ISD, and that is the very first district I taught in when I moved to Texas, but I taught at the high school there. I think the first problem that you said, Brian, is you mentioned there was an internal investigation. Why are school districts investigating themselves against this behavior? I think that's probably problem number one, right? It needs to be an external investigation to be completely fair and transparent. But I also think, too, in teaching, Texas is an at-will state. Many states are at-will states, and there are a lot of laws that protect teachers. And this applies to all professions, really, but they cannot say the reason for why someone, was fired. And the fact that the district allowed this teacher to resign, when it sounds to me like per their findings, they had serious issues regardless of the fact that they, I guess, didn't find anything of like a sexual nature in the classes, but they clearly, as you mentioned, found things that directly impacted his teaching and his ability to do his job. they allowed him still to resign. So then they don't have to pass that information or quote the trash to another school district. And so that school district in Oklahoma essentially hired him, I guess, blind, if you will, and they put him in a position that didn't involve children. They put him in a position that involved, I guess, technology around the school, which again is another problem. Why is that person allowed to then get a valid teaching license, credential, whatever, in that state with that kind of disciplinary behavior? I think the bar needs to be higher when it comes to children.
So the way the laws are now, can the new state where someone moves not get the full record, the full disciplinary record, the full HR file from the previous state?
Typically know if they're allowed to resign. If they were fired, then they would have a reason, right, to be able to say, why was this person terminated by this school district? That would be a logical, normal question for people to be able to ask. And even then, they probably couldn't give them all of the information, to be totally honest with you. But that would all have become a part of his permanent record. That follows you, right, from state to state to state. Especially with the teacher credentialing agencies, because it sounds like he's been predominantly in public schools, not private schools. So I think that's the biggest issue. The biggest problem is they allowed him to resign. He
Mm.
should have been terminated.
So I'm just thinking like when people have applied for jobs where I work, even if you can't get an official record, like you can do your own little investigation, like call people they work with, and you can get, even if people don't want to say outright, you can get a vibe like, well, you may want to look into him a little more. You know what I mean? Like, are the schools not doing that, or are they just, is it such a formalized process that they don't really kind of take that extra step?
Well, that's what's surprising. So I can actually speak to this specific school district because I applied there. I applied there from the state of California. So I was teaching in California and then obviously moved to that school district. And when I applied there, they did ask for referrals. So they asked for the names of other teachers at the school in California. And that school knew I was leaving, I was moving. So it wasn't surprising. They called them. Like they definitely called them. And so my question is obviously if he went from Texas to Oklahoma, he would have had to provide referrals. But those referrals are all on him to provide. He can decide what names he wants to give. But I guess the question would be is as a school district, if someone isn't providing names and information of people within that school to contact, that would probably be a red flag to me. Obviously, when I applied, I gave them my former department chair, I gave them a colleague, right? I had nothing to hide. And so I think those are things that are red flags. Or, and again, I don't know how Oklahoma went about hiring him. I don't want to make that assumption. Maybe they didn't check his references. Like they are dealing with a lot of sheer volume, right, of applicants and teachers. And so that may be the case. I truly don't know, but those are just kind of several scenarios there.
So you are obviously passionate about this because of your background, FBI, CIA, also because you were a teacher and for a long time. You still teach, right?
Yes, well,
Yeah.
now I teach college, which is a
Yeah.
little different, but yes.
And then you're also a parent. And share with us, and I know this story already, but with our audience, people watching, what happened with your daughter in terms of this pass the trash issue, and sort of your personal story.
Yeah, so obviously my daughter's case is going to be different in that, the person that was ultimately arrested and convicted will never gain another teaching credential based on the charges that he had. But what's interesting with her is, that she was 3 when this occurred, and her teacher had broken her arm, locked her in a closet. I had called CPS multiple times on this teacher. Obviously, that's like a normal thing. And I worked at the school. And basically, I was told, hey, this makes our school look kind of bad. If you do that, we can't really do anything about this. And a few months later, he was led out of the school in handcuffs for downloading copious amounts of child porn using the school's server to do it. I mean, if you read the FBI information that they used to indict him, all of that's in there. So it's all there. And that's what was super surprising to me. And various teachers had kind of come and gone since I was there. And for reasons I did not know. And we were always told, you may not speak about this. You may not talk about your experiences with these teachers. And so that is a huge problem. I'm not sure why we place more value on protecting these teachers than protecting our children. And I get it. People are in a weird spot. Other teachers don't want to speak up. They don't want to lose their livelihoods. They don't want to lose their jobs. I get that. I respect that. But I think as a nation, we need to enact some different legislation that allows for a little bit more transparency, in my opinion.
This teacher at your daughter's school, do you, and you may not know just because of this passing the trash issue, and maybe there was no way to know, but do you think this teacher had issues at a previous school?
You know, Brian, that's hard to know because, like you mentioned, we wouldn't know because of this pass the trash situation. He was very young when he started at my daughter's school. So part of me does wonder if that was one of his, well, he had actually, you know what, he had several other jobs before then. But what's interesting is when you look through the FBI information, it's pretty long. One of the things that he said was that he actually did get into teaching to prey on kids. That was why he got into the job. And he'd had a problem since he was 16, 17. And he had gone into teaching, I think when he was about 21, 22-ish, and different schools, private schools in Texas. So this wasn't at a public school, but either way, in my opinion, it's the same.
Do you think with the private schools in particular, these prestigious private schools, I'm almost thinking like with the Catholic Church, kind of a similar
Yeah.
thing with the priests, with the prestigious private schools, is there such an effort to protect the reputation? You know, people are paying a lot of money to have their kids go there. There's a whole history with, I mean, do they, it's almost like, do they not want word to get out about these things?
I think that that's part of it. The school that I taught at actually had another incident before I had even gotten there, like 2 years beforehand, where their head of technology was let out in handcuffs regarding a similar sort of issue. I used to think that it was mostly a a private school issue because they don't, like you said, they're charging a pretty penny, right, for students to go there and they need to keep up that reputation. But when I heard about this story and I heard about Donald Elementary, I heard about Louisville ISC, I realized that it might not just be about these private schools. I think it's public schools too. They don't want that out there, that maybe their judgment, for lack of a better word, sucked, and they hired a bad person as a teacher. That erodes then the public's trust, right, in their school district. That then impacts property values because people don't want to live in that school district, right? Like there's this whole like
Mm.
waterfall of events that transpire. So I used to think it was just like a private school problem, but I don't think that it is, sadly.
When you first went and complained about this teacher and you mentioned your daughter's arm was broken and there were other signs of just, you obviously are a former FBI agent, CIA, like you kind of know how to read people. What did the school say?
I mean, stop. For lack of a better word, stop. It's unfounded. It's this is making us look bad. Why are you singling him out? There's other teachers that they just. I guess I expected, and maybe this is naive of me. I'm not a naive person. I expected them to be like, "Oh my gosh, this is serious. We need to look into this." What? And so, they start to put pressure on you, right, to feel like you are the problem. And so then you sort of, I never let it go, but I get why people would sort of like take a step back from that. And so, yeah, no, they didn't. I don't want to go so far as to say they didn't believe me. Part of me wonders if they did. They just didn't want to have that issue. And so I'll be completely honest, I started to get loud about it. I did because it's my kid. I think anyone would, right?
Yeah.
And I think that is what upset them the most. Not what was happening to my child, but that I was loud.
Well,
Um,
with this story in Arkansas with Andrew McGann, I'm wondering, it didn't take very long. They just arrested the guy. The mugshots came out, and all of a sudden, all of these parents are starting to talk, like come out of the shadows, doing interviews with media in Texas. You got to wonder, they must be like feel validated almost. And I don't know for sure, but I bet they were kind of like you. Like it sounds like now they're like, we told you guys, you know?
I do think, and this is going to sound bad because obviously I'm not like celebrating what my daughter's teacher did. It was weird when I found out that everything had happened. It actually was August 1st. It was 5 years ago today.
Oh.
It was 5 years ago today. When I found out there was this sense of validation, right? Like obviously, I think that they feel probably this sense of validation. But my guess, again, I don't know because I just know how I feel. Was this like sense of like, did I fail my child, right? Like by not doing something sooner about it because I know I felt that. Again, I don't know how they're feeling. I'm just, saying how I felt. But yes, I would imagine they're pretty upset, and I would imagine there might be some recourse for the district too. I don't know, but there might be. They shouldn't have let him resign. That's the bottom line.
Yeah, and I hope there's not awful stories that come out and it was just,
I know.
suspicion, but you wonder, are they going to go back and investigate a little more? And I mean, does this guy just randomly try to do this all of a sudden out of nowhere, or is there going to be something else?
I don't know because I think, and I mentioned this to you yesterday, I feel that behavior starts to escalate after a certain period of time. Like you cover a lot of crime, Brian. Like you are the crime, like God, that's what you do. And so like you see, right, how some of these folks start to escalate their behavior. Even in Brian Koberger, right? Like let's take him
Yeah.
for, he didn't just like wake up and do that one day. His behavior started to escalate. That's how I feel like it was with my daughter's teacher. And that's how I feel like it was with Andrew McGann. I believe he got that job teaching right out of college. I think once they start talking to him, we're going to see he took it on purpose. I really think that, which is awful, but I think that's the case. And when he couldn't fulfill whatever fetish he had, right, because he was asked to resign, he then went to another school district. And in that school district, he really wasn't in contact with children. That frustrated him. And so he escalated to another district. And again, he's on summer break, right? He's not able to fulfill his fetishes. And I think this is how it came out.
Oh, that's interesting what you say about summer break. Because I was wondering that too. If you wanted to
Yeah.
hurt a child, like,
I don't think he
why
wants to
go to
hurt
the,
them. I think he wants to abuse it, like abuse.
yeah,
I don't think he wants to kill them. I think he
yeah.
wants to abuse them.
Interesting. Yeah, because I was thinking that why not just if you're a teacher, why would you have to go to all that trouble to go to the hiking trail? But yeah, if it's summer break and he hadn't actually started yet.
Yeah.
Um, and even with all the crime I cover, I think like something about teachers and kids, it just
Yeah.
I don't know, it bothers me in a different kind of way.
It should. It
Yeah,
should. You're a human.
yeah. So what the passing the trash, like what can we do to fix this? Like what should I mean, is this federal lawmakers? Like how do we fix this problem?
It's so interesting because obviously I don't really talk about politics. I try to kind of remain apolitical, but this is interestingly an issue. So, like in Texas, there's just a Senate bill that passed a couple weeks ago to kind of tighten some of these laws. It was unanimously bipartisan, right? It's like Texas is definitely a one kind of side state.
Right.
So that's good, right? Like this is good. This should appeal to people on both sides of the aisle. This is just a human issue, like you said, right? It just makes you feel a certain way. But in my opinion, I think to get anything done, it needs to be at the federal level because different schools will be responsible for different things depending on what that state decides to pass. And
Mm,
the biggest obstacle, and again, I know I'm going to frustrate everyone. I hope this is okay. The biggest obstacle to that, particularly in the public schools, are teachers' unions.
yeah, I was
That's
just gonna say it.
Yeah, and I'm not saying they're bad or anything like that. Listen, I lived in California, which is the teachers union state, and I taught there. I've taught in Texas, which is not a teachers union state, and I taught there. So I don't really have a feeling one way or another, but they view this, right? Like passing that information about McGann, with his whatever issues he had in the classroom as a violation of his privacy. And they need to come off of that because it's children who are suffering as a result of that. Listen, if he had broken a copier or something like that and refused to pay for it, I don't think that's information that needs to be passed to the next district, right? That
Yeah.
person should be able to maintain their teaching credential. But I think there needs to be stipulations that if you have specific issues in the classroom, which he very much did, the district admitted to that, it needs to be passed along. Full stop.
And also, like with him, if you're hiring him in Arkansas and you see that he's had all of these teaching jobs and he's a young guy, this isn't like some, you know, 50-year-old woman who's like, oh, we just retired and bought our house in Arkansas after
Right.
25 years teaching in Texas. Like, you would think there would be, are they just so desperate for teachers, maybe? I don't, you know?
I mean, it could be. Listen, when I moved from California to Texas and had gone to that career fair at Louisville, they did ask me, why I was looking there. It was like really simple. I had gotten engaged. My husband's practice was in Dallas, right? Like that, it was a very simple explanation. And yes, I do think when someone goes through that many jobs that quickly, right? Like that, I don't even care what industry it's in. I'm sure it would give you pause, right?
Yeah.
Even the journalism field, if you've gone through 6 different networks in a year, right?
Right.
That's a
Yeah.
problem. But I don't know if he lied, right? There's so many different factors that go into that. Maybe he lied and said it was a family, right? Like there's so many factors that go into it. I think it would be difficult to really like pin that down. But yes, they asked me.
Yeah. And like you said, with the teachers' unions, I mean, obviously they're good in a lot of ways. Teachers don't get paid enough and
Of
they
course
get
not.
pushed around. And from being a teacher, I'm sure there are parents that complain about things that
100%.
the teacher really didn't do anything wrong.
100%.
But I've done stories like when I was in local news, like we would do a story about like a teacher like punching a kid or something, and the union would like stand by the teacher. And
Yeah.
then we get the video like 2 weeks later, and it was like they kind of it's almost like a police union. It seems like they automatically defend like before they even really know.
Mhm. That's their job, right? And I think it's gross. I think police unions need to be better as well, to be completely honest with you. I think if you're coming into contact with the public in an armed way, like a police officer is, I think that needs to be looked at a little bit differently. And I think that when you're coming into contact with children, that needs to be looked at differently. And I think we need to look. I am not saying to abolish teachers' unions. Listen, we definitely don't get paid enough, and we definitely deal with some things that I really think would boggle a lot of people's minds. But if this is the firm stance they're going to take, are they really advocating for children? Or are they more about protecting themselves? And that becomes the part where it's a problem.
Yeah. Well, hopefully, maybe. I mean, I know this has been a problem for a long time. If you Google "pass the trash," I mean, this has
Mm.
been, probably decades. But maybe now with this latest situation, as more comes out, maybe this will be what it takes for the federal lawmakers to actually take notice.
I hope so. Um, I just don't know. I worry that the national teachers unions or the large ones from the large districts are just too powerful. That's part of what I worry about. But this could have been beyond. I'm scared to think what would have happened if he had actually gotten into that classroom in Arkansas,
Mm.
because losing these two adults is enough, right? And then the trauma that these two children, and if you look at it, the children were 7 and 9. I think he targeted them. He taught fourth grade. At my daughter was 9 and in fourth grade. I think he has an age preference, and I think that's why he targeted these, and that is so disturbing.
Mm. It really is. It's like awful to think about. Well, Tracy, thank you
Thank
for
you,
for
Brian.
talking with me. Hopefully lawmakers will listen.
I hope so, and thank you for covering this.
Thank you, Tracy.